Hey everybody, welcome to today's team meeting on cold calling and working lists like direct mail type lists or maybe aged lead lists. I know that this is, going to be something that's a big part of many of your day. And it can be a challenging part of your day. Trying to reconnect or trying to connect with somebody who has no clue who you are. You've never done business with them in the past. They're not a past customer. You haven't even quoted them yet. And you're trying to cultivate and start a relationship. Does it seem like an uphill battle? It is. And that's okay. We're going to help you fight that uphill battle because you know what? There's all types of leads that you can work from, cross sells, win backs, requotes, live transfers, direct mail. And we have training sessions on all of those too. But cold calls are certainly a part of your agency's business plan most likely and can be a gold mine for you as you're prospecting to write a few more customers a week.
And look, of all the different leads you're going to work, is this one probably the closest to the bottom? Probably so. But here's the thing to keep in mind is that it's an arithmetic game. You've got to have the numbers, So every day, if you're trying to quote 7, 8, 9, 10 people, you're going to have to make phone calls, right? So you're going to have to work this list maybe a lot harder than you would a cross-sell list where they're going to recognize your phone number, recognize your name. So a lot of this is just your commitment to activity. So if you're a newer agency and maybe this is really all you have, you don't have any win backs, maybe you don't have a lot of requotes, this can still be an integral part of your overall plan when it comes to lead generation. You're just going to have to commit to a certain number of calls every day and be on the phone and just go ahead and embrace the fact that you're going to get a ton of voicemails. You're going to get a lot of people that give you some rejection, hang up the phone, that type of thing. But you're looking for those 8, 9, 10 people that you can quote and get the opportunity to talk to them about their insurance. So this is really just a numbers game. It's all about the arithmetic.
So if you think about cold calling and reaching out to people that have no relationship with you, you might think, Joseph, my agency owner gave me a list. We actually had a member talk about, she gave her staff a list of 46 people. And the team member said, the list wasn't very good. There were some wrong numbers. Hardly anybody called me back. Only 46 people. That's like what you should call by 11 a.m., by the way, every morning. But anyways, she wrote 4 items from it. Mm-hmm. And the owner was like, that's a great list. So be cool with beep, 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 bad number. Mm-hmm. Be okay with you trying to call John Smith and it be not John Smith. And she's like, who dis? And it's just not who you're trying to call. How do you overcome that? Be okay with lots and lots of voicemails. And that's very important. We're about to get into our open discussion now about your activity levels, but always leaving voicemails, always planting those seeds. Remember, everything that you do, every phone call, voicemail, email, if they've opted into texting and are using a compliant texting program, text, every handwritten card, every conversation, every little thing that you do is planting seeds. So let's talk about that for a minute. This will be our open discussion. So at the top of your checklist, your team meeting worksheet, at the very, very top, that open space, I want you to take a moment to write down and then discuss as a team, what it's going to take. What level of activity do you think it's going to take in terms of how many phone calls, how many repetitions on each type of lead? Jot down what it's going to take to be successful inserting more cold calls and working age lead lists in your program. So take a minute now, jot down what your commitment is and what you think it's going to take to be successful. Discuss it as a team and with your manager or owner, and we'll be back here in just a minute. Welcome back from the discussion. I hope that you were talking some big numbers. At the end of the day, it's going to take a lot of activity. Just to even talk to these people, you might need to leave 7 to 10 voicemails just to get a return call. Mm-hmm. There might be other things that you can do to return calls. I have a team member, he's in our coaching program up in Pennsylvania. He told me last week that their agency closed a lead that had over 100 contacts. They finally closed a lead that they've been working for like 3 years, hitting them a couple times a month for 3 years. Persistence pays. If there's one thing that I want you to know, persistence pays. You've got to stay on these leads probably a lot more than you were thinking.
Yeah, and look, you've got to continually have action items, right? So it's not just the call, it's the voicemail, the email if you can, the text if you can. postcards. If you're a producer and you're not sending out 10 postcards a day, particularly to your better prospects that just have a lot of things that you really want to talk to them about, you're missing out. So planting seeds, like Joseph said, is really, really important. You've got to commit to this list and understand mentally that you're going to get a lot of rejection. You're going to get a lot of negativity when it comes to different people that don't want to talk to you, don't pick up the phone, whatever. We're just trying to get those 8, 9, 10 quotes a day. That's really what we're trying to accomplish. So hopefully you committed to a high level of activity. But let's also talk about the voicemail for just a minute, because a lot of times people struggle with this, that they either don't think they should leave a voicemail or they're not really sure what to say. Let's just talk about that for just a second, Joseph.
Well, if you like wasting time, if you're totally cool with just burning your time, don't leave voicemails. You must leave a voicemail. Just imagine right now you're in a team meeting here at the agency, learning from us, and you glance down at your phone and you see a phone call coming in, and it's a local area code, but you don't know who they are. They don't leave a message. What do? Are you going to call them back? No. What do? You move on with your life. You forget about it. You assume it wasn't important. You assume they had the wrong number. You assume it was a sales call, right? And you're like, I'm definitely not calling them back. Always, always, always leave a message so people know who you are. And when it comes to voicemails, keep them simple. They can really be the same for almost everything. Hi, this is Joseph Puckett here at Craig Wiggins Agencies, giving you a call about your policy. There was a few things I wanted to discuss with you. When you have a few moments this afternoon, give me a call back, 256-490-3739. I look forward to talking with you today. Click. I'm calling about your policy. That can be for anything. Win-backs, requotes, cross-sells, people you hadn't talked to yet. You're calling about their policy, aren't you? Don't sell via voicemail. Don't talk about your great new rates. Who wants to talk about insurance? Come on now. That's just not going to get people. You're going to turn people off. The minute somebody thinks that they're being sold, they kind of put up a wall and you have to break through it. I prefer we just don't put up the wall. So always leave a voicemail. Always keep it kind of vague like that to where they don't have to decide, do they want to call you back? You're calling about their policy. And you know what? You do that 4 or 5 times, partner with a couple emails, partner with a handwritten card or two. They're going to want to talk to you. I promise you it's going to work. But also know this, you'll leave plenty of voicemails and reach out to tons of people who you'll never, ever talk to. It's just all part of the numbers.
That's right. It's part of the deal. And look, sometimes people feel like, well, I don't want to hound people to death. I don't want to be too pushy. If that's the case, if someone's going to get offended by you continually following up with them, they were probably never going to do business with you anyways, nope. Right? Or sometimes people may say, well, I don't want to leave a message so vague where they call me and then find out what I was actually calling about and they get upset. So what? At least you're having the conversation, right? The thing about voicemail is if you leave too much information, you allow them to decide, most of the time they're just going to decide not to call you back. Perfect example, yesterday morning, I'm on my way to the office, somebody called from a company I do business with, left a very vague message, right? I called them back, within 10 minutes. When I called them, I found out what they were calling about. Had they told me that, I never would have called. Okay? And then we had the opportunity to talk and we're working on what they actually called me about. But the point is you want to leave a lot of messages and you want to give people the opportunity to call you back without actually knowing what it is that you're looking for, right? And if they get upset, they get upset. But again, those people that get upset because you're pushy, they were never going to buy from you anyways. So you're not really missing out on anything. But if you don't do that, you're not going to get people to call you. It's all about talking to people. It's all about having the opportunity to quote. The more opportunities you have to quote, the more opportunities you're going to have to close, right? So don't worry about that part. Don't get caught up in the whole, how are they going to react to all this? We just need conversations. So like the postcards. The postcards, we've got examples of those on the platform. You can print those off. They're very vague as well. Just give me a call about your policy. And sometimes these people, especially when you're working cold leads like we're talking about today, they may not have any insurance with you, may have nothing with you. Mm-hmm. And they call you maybe thinking that they do, and then they find out. So you got to be prepared for that, right? You have to understand that this is a little bit different situation, and there could be something you've got to address and overcome in the very beginning because they don't have any insurance with you. That's okay. Again, we're just trying to have conversations. We're trying to have as many conversations as we can every day, with people, and whether they have insurance with you or not, that doesn't matter. It's all about the contacts. So the more contacts we have, the better the likelihood is we're going to get a chance to talk to them. The more people we talk to, the better chance we have to close.
So let's talk about, what do we say when they answer? Wow. Here's the thing. 80 to 90% of outbound calls are going to be voicemails, but go into everyone expecting them to answer. You don't need to be like doing your nails or playing Candy Crush and kind of going through the motions. Be prepared. All right. Because that's what you're trying to do, is get people to talk to. So we've talked about how to leave voicemails. You guys can discuss and role play that as well. But let's talk about what to say when someone answers. So you're calling. Finally, someone says, hello, and it's not a voice machine. What do we say? So here is where in the middle part of your training worksheet, so you have your team meeting training worksheet, there in the middle box, here's where I want you to write your script. Now keep in mind, we don't want you to say everything that we say verbatim like an insurance agent robot. Make them your own, but always try to follow our structure. There's reasons behind it. So here in the box, we're going to pop up the script that you can write down. Feel free to make it your own. Then you're all going to get to role play it with each other and practice, because practice makes permanent. So, ring, ring, ring. Hello. Hi, this is Joseph Puckett here at Craig Wiggins Agency. How are you today? Introduce yourself, who you are, and where you're from. How are you today? Start the call somewhat jovially, not salesy. They'll have to answer that question. How are you today? They can't say, I'm not interested. Well, maybe they could. Great. Next. But how are you today? They'll say, I'm good. Good. The reason I'm calling is I was calling about your policy. I would love to take a look and see what we could do to help you and your family here at Craig Wiggins Agency. Let me get this pulled up here. I see here on my list, are you still at 123 Main Street? Confirm their address. You likely have their address. Are you still at 123 Main Street? Or I have your number. Maybe you have just their number. Maybe it's just a name and a number. So I have your number here. I've got that down. Is that the best contact, Mr. Jones? Great. Now, what is your address? Don't say things like, we've got some great new rates in town, or have you seen our advertising? We advertise a lot. Do you know who we are? Or can I interest you in a quote? Who wants a quote on their insurance? What psychopath wants a quote on their insurance just out of the blue? Nobody. So don't ask them things that will give them an out. That's very important when telemarketing. Never ever give people outs. So that's the script. Who you are, why you're calling, can I confirm, are you still at this address, or what is your address? Assume the quote and make them stop you. Now, a common objection you might get is, I'm not interested, or I don't have time right now. Y'all can role play that together back and forth. I'm not interested, or I don't have time right now. How can you power through that objection? Very simply, hey, Mr. Jones, I understand that time might be a little tight and you might not be interested, but I promise you this call will be beneficial. And it won't take me but just a few minutes to take a look to see what we can do for you today. Is it 123 Main Street, or has that changed? So try to just power through that. If they stop you a second time, or they sincerely seem that they're in a rush, try to set the call back. Is today at 2 p.m. good, or tomorrow at 10 a.m. good? Okay, so that's kind of the frame of the cold call or calling on an age lead list. I want y'all to practice this and with each other. Okay, if you're the customer, don't be too hard on your friend. All right, don't be too hard, because you know what? Maybe y'all can reverse roles. And if you're the customer, now you're the agent, they might be hard on you too. But do try to give one of those objections.
And let me give you one other thing to overcome that objection. When they tell you they don't have time, something that you can do is you can set a time. Okay, you can say, well, how about 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon? And they say, yeah, that'd be great. And then you can say something like, they say, great, you know what, for me to prepare for that call, let me just get a little bit of information from you, and you just go right into it.
Yep.
And before you know it, 15 minutes later, you might be finishing up that quote. So that's another way to overcome that objection and actually do what you called about. Well, that actually have to put the call off till tomorrow. So when they say that, they don't have time, get a time and say, hey, so I can be prepared for that call, let me just get a little bit of information from you and just keep quoting. Just keep gathering information, and then you may finish it up and say, hey, you know what? I've got everything I need. I don't need to call you back tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and work on this quote right now. So that's another great way to overcome that objection.
I love that. Let's pause the tape here just for a moment. Everybody in the room gets at least one chance. Play with each other. Remember, don't be too hard on your peers because they might be just as hard on you. We'll see y'all back after the role play. Welcome back from the role play. Remember, role playing might be somewhat uncomfortable sometimes. That's okay. Practice makes permanent. We can't just talk all day. We need to actually discuss it, role play, practice, implement. So hopefully you all got a little bit better, and now we can start implementing today as you're working through your cold call and age lead lists.
Yeah, look, I would just challenge you to take this seriously, and I think getting ready mentally is the biggest thing. When it comes to working these any list, don't get caught up in analysis paralysis. Don't look at each one and start trying to figure out, what am I going to say? How am I going to say it? What am I going to do? Because 80, 90% of them, you're going to call and leave a voicemail anyways. Okay, so just roll through that. Just continue to be on the phone. Make sure you leave good messages. Make sure you're sending out postcards, and then try to overcome, one objection. What we try to teach people is if we get more than one, once we get to that second, especially the third, it's probably best just to set an appointment and move on. Okay, so there's a lot of practice that goes into this. You definitely want to practice the scripting. You want to practice the objections, overcome the objections. But if you'll commit to this and make this a part of what you do, it may not fill the entire 8, 9, 10 quotes that you're trying to do every day, but it might fill the gap of 2 or 3 that you're not getting right now because you're not making these calls. So if this is the only list you have to work, great. You can still do a lot of work with this. Back when I first started, we did a lot of cross-directory lists. We just had a cross-directory on a street with a name and a number, and you start calling those people. There was nothing, no relationship, nothing purchased, nothing like that. So this is still a very effective way to drive new business.
Absolutely, and I'll leave you with this. Cold calling should not be your sole focus. I would encourage y'all to really start to think about other lead sources. Check out the lead generation course for staff. It's in the sales section where we talk about all different types of lead sources like customer referrals, partnerships, generating items from service, and all these things. If all you do is cold call all day, it might be a bit tough to hit your goals. So if it's a big focus of the agency, great. But start to work smart too and be thinking about other things. We commonly say cold calling is the punishment for not having enough referral partners.
That's right.
Yes and no. I mean, there's always going to be some cold calling. Even Beth Lambert, our top agent here, cranks out 100 to 200 calls every day, mainly on things like requotes and winbacks, but you could say those are pretty cold. Some of those were from years ago. So long story short, this should just be a part of your business plan at the agency. Work to develop other sources as well. So with that said, you guys need to finish up your team meeting here. Thank you for letting us be a part of it. Wrap up your team meeting, get to work, and crush those phones today. Remember what I tattoo on my forehead, what I always say, pick up the phone. Pick up the phone, pick up the phone. Make it a great day, team.